Time now for another edition of the Kaufman Corner podcast. Through our morning, the end of the season, we begin to look to the future. We start with a look to the future by looking to the past, right? Those who don't study history are doomed to repeat it. We'll take a look at our bold and daring predictions for this year. Also, who we thought the award winners would be for the Royals. What did we get right? What did we get wrong on our predictions? What to do with the impending free agents. Names like Michael Wacha, Adam Frazier, Hunter Renfroe, Chris Stratton, all on the list. And what two players should the Royals be looking at trading? We'll take a shot at who we think should be, guys that the Royals are putting up on the blocks or at least accepting offers for. We'll talk about, what exactly they should be shopping for right now. We do it here on the Kaufman Corner podcast.
This is the Kaufman Corner podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Royals, breaking down the Royals like no one else can. Kaufman Corner is hosted by Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro. Rany is a co-founder of Baseball Prospectus, author of Rany on the Royals, and former columnist for Grantland, The Ringer, and The Athletic. Soren is the award-winning afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Kaufman Corner is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are your hosts, Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it as we make our way through, the beginning of the offseason, Randy. I don't know whether that's going to be necessarily an explosive episode of the Kaufman Corners. It's the first time we're away from the season and beginning of the offseason, but it is also the first time that we begin to look to the future for the Kansas City Royals. That's at least exciting. Do you agree with that?
Well, for the first time in months, Zoran, we can actually have perspective, right? Like we've been so deep in the weeds for so long that there's something a little liberating and less stressful about just looking at the big picture. And, like you said, looking to not just the future, but looking long term. We haven't been able to do that for a while. Mind you, it's fun to look in the short term when you're in a pennant race. Like I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but like after so much stress, it's nice to be able to just take a step back, take a deep breath, and say to yourself, okay, where is this organization now? Where are they going? What can they do to make the organization better in the big picture?
Yeah, no, and I agree. Therapeutic, would you say, Rany?
A little bit, yeah. I think my blood pressure has been elevated for a few months now. It's been fun, but this will be definitely less taxing on the ticker this week's episode, I think.
Yeah, we're going to review our predictions just off the top of your head. How did you think you did?
I don't remember all of my predictions. I remember at least 2 of the 5. I think I did pretty well, but I think the big picture here is our predictions were kind of they were I think we said they were our wildly optimistic predictions. They were bold, right? These were our hot take predictions. And so in a sense, what we were doing was predicting in the event that the Royals had a surprisingly good season, right? In the event that they had a best case scenario season, what might happen to make that possible? Then the Royals went out and had a best case scenario season, right? And so I think you and I will feel proud that given that they did that, did we nail the parameters of how they would do so? And I'm curious to see all of the predictions, but I'm guessing just based on the fact that the Royals had a good year, that you and I did a fairly good job of making hot take predictions that actually turned out to be at least partially true.
Okay, all right. Let's start with our categories. Right. First of all, we had our Player of the Year. We both went Bobby Witt Jr.
I think we nailed that one.
We nailed it. Pitcher of the Year. We both went Cole Reagans.
I mean, I think there's 2 correct answers here, right? By baseball wins above replacement, Lugo was actually slightly better based purely on runs. But I think if you used a Fangraphs method, which looks at home runs, walks, strikeouts, that Reagans was better. I don't think there's a wrong answer between the two, but I think we nailed that one. Yes.
Yeah, I think we got it as well. Breakout player. Do you remember who you had for a breakout player?
Was it Michael Garcia?
No.
Huh.
We both had the same guy.
Oh, MJ?
We both had MJ Melendez, the breakout. Didn't get there.
No, I wouldn't say, not a total failure. He had his moments, but no, I can't say that he broke out.
Yeah.
He broke. He didn't break out.
Yes. Biggest disappointment, Hunter Renfroe. I think we're proud to say we got that wrong.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
we're not in the weeds, but he
was like it looked like a perfect pick for about 6 weeks. And then for 3 months, he kind of quietly carried the offense on some level as the second or third best hitter on the team from like mid-May to about mid-August. And then he fell apart again. But overall, he was acceptably bad. He was above replacement level, I would say, even if he was below average. I'm worried about the second year on his contract, but it was not a complete disaster. So yeah, it was not as bad as I thought.
No, I'm glad to say that. So who did break out? And who was the biggest disappointment?
It's funny. I mean, breakout. I think you have to go to the pitching side because, if you don't count Bobby Witt, like the only hitter that really broke out was Bobby Witt, and you could argue though that his season counts as like 3 breakouts by himself because he had tied George Brett for the greatest season by baseball wins above replacement and broke Brett's record for Fangraphs wins above replacement in the history of the franchise. So, it's striking though when you look at the offense and you're like, nobody else really exceeded expectations. Like Michael Massey had a decent year but missed a third of the year. Vinny had a good year but not a great year. I'm not sure he was better than we thought. In fact, I think we were optimistic he'd be a little bit better than that, but he was about what we expected. But on the hitting side, there wasn't really a breakout other than Bobby.
I would make a case that Freddie Fermin is a name that you could put in there because he was so good defensively and the bat was acceptable, right? I know he fell off at the end, but then for a while he was really, hanging some really good numbers. And so I would make a case that Freddie Fermin. I don't know that you've got a true breakout player on this roster. Seth Lugo, perhaps, for validating what he did.
On the pitching side, you can definitely make a case for some guys. I agree. Freddie, his overall value was, he was a 3-win player. I don't know if it's a breakout, but it was better than we expected. He did collapse in September, and the one thing you have to say is if he was our breakout player of the year, it's hard to square that with the fact that he did not appear in a postseason game. He was healthy, and yet the Royals literally did not use Freddie Fermin in the playoffs at all. So it's hard to argue that he's truly a breakout player when they just ignored him in October. Lugo took a big step forward. Beyond what we expected.
I will disagree with that. If you went and shopped Freddie Fermin, do you think that you would get a lot of people that were interested in bringing Freddie Fermin in?
Right now, yeah, no, I think, in fact, I think he's a guy that they should be considering that.
I think the not playing in the postseason is more just a product of the construction of the roster than it is that, what was it? Carlos Maldonado started many games for the Astros. He couldn't hit a lick. Freddie Fermin's bat is fine when it comes with the defense that he brings.
He's a very valuable player. I agree. He was better than expected. And if I had to pick one player besides Bobby Witt as a breakout on the offensive side, you're probably right. It is Freddie for me. I'm just saying, and part of it, I'm still kind of disappointed they didn't use him. They didn't find a way to use him in October, given his defensive strengths, given the fact that they were playing Yuli Gurriel at first base. I feel like at some point they could have put Salvi at first and played Freddie Fermin.
Yeah.
And some of that is, managing personalities, and, Salvi's the captain, and, he was healthy enough to catch, and they wanted him to catch. But it's interesting when you talk about how good this team was and how many wins they improved from the year before, and yet you can't really point to one player other than Bobby Witt and be like, that guy improved by 3 or 4 wins. Because Freddie Fermin was actually, the other thing is, he was actually really good in 2023, but we all thought it was a fluke because it was about 60 games worth, and he basically replicated what he did last year. His defense was probably a little better because he threw out more runners, and he played more.
Yeah.
But
By the way, Cam corrected me. It's Martin Maldonado, not Carlos Maldonado. Important distinction to make there. Had a couple of people lobby for Vinny Pasquantino, perhaps for the breakout player.
I feel like, I mean, maybe because I was optimistic that this is what he could do. He was very streaky. His overall numbers were probably about what I expected. Now, maybe we should still give him credit for breaking out because he's coming off a major injury. But if I were to say breakout better than we expected, I mean, what Seth Lugo did, and I was optimistic about Seth Lugo, but I did not expect a Cy Young contender, with a 3 ERA and worth over 5 wins. And then, I mean, Brady Singer wasn't a breakout, but it was certainly a return to, his elite form, the best we've seen from him. So certainly a step forward from last year.
Yeah.
So those are probably the two guys I would point to.
All right. Other categories that we had. Best position player, not Bobby Witt Jr. We both went with Michael Garcia.
Yeah, that didn't work out.
Who would you give it to? Who would you say ultimately
best position player? I mean, given the totality of the season, I mean, Salvador Perez, had a big bounce back, and he played some first base, but he hit 27 home runs.
Yep.
Slugged 456 and caught the majority of the games. I mean, he was a more valuable player. And I mean, at bat, Michael Massey was really, really good. He didn't play a full amount, but in the postseason, he was one of the world's best players, and he did play every day. So that gives you some optimism for the future if he can just stay healthy for 140 games instead of 100 next year.
We had the best pitcher not named Cole Riggins. We both went with Seth Lugo.
I definitely think we nailed that one. Yes.
Best reliever.
Ooh. We should have picked none of the above. He's not on the roster yet.
That's what we should have done, but we both went with James McArthur. We got that wrong.
We got it wrong, although if you look at the guys who are actually on the opening day roster, the only one I would say was better was probably Angel Serpa, right? Yeah. Or Schreiber. I guess John Schreiber might have been for the whole season was better.
Okay.
But I mean, those are the only two guys who survived until the end of the season on the active roster. So there was no good answer there.
Biggest impact rookie. You went with James McArthur. I went with Matt Sauer.
Well, I was less wrong than you, I will say. Matt Sauer survived about 3 weeks on the roster.
I will actually argue that point. Matt Sauer didn't tank as many games as McArthur did.
No, because they let him go before he had a chance to. Ultimately,
McArthur was worse.
He probably hurt them in more games, but he also helped them. I mean, there was, again, about a 3-month stretch where he was, or maybe not 3 months, about a 6 to 8 week stretch where he was great, and then it was a 3-month stretch where he was awful.
There was 5 minutes when they pitched him in no leverage when he looked like he was back. But overall, anytime he was in a big situation, it usually didn't go well. Top prospect at the end of the year. You remember what we said?
Did we say who our first round pick will be this year?
No,
we did not.
Blake Walters.
Blake Walters, not Blake Mitchell.
No, we both said Blake Walters.
Oh, interesting. Well, that would be a miss. We picked the wrong Blake. I think, if you're gonna argue, although we will have this discussion in a future podcast about the minor league system. I'm not gonna tip my hand too much there about who I would say is at the top, but Blake Walters is not the number one prospect in the system. I don't think he's top 5 at this point.
I think in looking back at that, what's interesting is how little we expected of Blake Mitchell.
Right. I think he definitely exceeded my expectations and certainly my fears. He had a good year, not necessarily a great year. I know right now, Baseball America, I don't believe they have him in their top 100, but but MLB Pipeline, MLB.com's own top 100 ranks him 51st. So he's probably about where he was at the beginning of the year, a fringe top 100 prospect, which still makes him one of the 2 or 3 best prospects in the Royal system easily.
And for our records, you had them at 75 and 87. I had them at 77 and 85.
Yeah. We were wrong, but I think both
of you were more wrong since you.
I was more wrong. I was more 2 wins.
Wrong.
I was more wrong by 2 wins, but I think, given that we were wrong, I do think we both said they had improved enough. Okay, come on. You're coming off of a 56-win season.
I mean, you were calling for a 19-win improvement, and I was calling for a 21.
Right. I mean,
I don't think we're
not
that far off, yeah.
Yeah, we both said, yes, we don't expect them to be above 500 on average, but they have improved themselves enough that if they get good breaks, if they have what we call a 90th percentile season, right? Good health, maybe one or two players break out you don't expect, that they could dream of being in contention at the trade deadline. I remember we had this discussion, right? Like that's all you can ask. You put yourself in that position by begin. They did that because they were willing to spend money and sign Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha. And a lot of teams this past winter weren't willing to spend money. And we both said that you have to give the Royals credit for spending money to improve themselves enough to at least be on the fringe of contention. That analysis I'm proud of because that's essentially what happened. They stayed very healthy for almost the whole season. I mean, we'll talk about keys to their success above and beyond 75 or 77 wins. A good chunk of it is just health. They had really good health. I think the rest of it, you could say, there's a small part which would you say just luck, good luck with runners in scoring position. They hit well with runners in scoring position until September and won probably a few extra games that way. And then the big thing was their pitching development system, that they've overhauled, paid enormous dividends with multiple players from Lugo. And obviously they'd already done it with Reagans, but he maintained it in getting Brady Singer back on track. And even Alec Marsh being a credible number 5 starter, through the rotation, that to me is the other area. But the point is they had to spend money in order to be in that position in the first place. If they hadn't gone out and signed Lugo and Walker, they wouldn't have won 86 games no matter what.
All right, we'll get to our 5 bold and daring predictions for the Royals this year. Some we did well, some we did not do well on. We'll get to that here in a second. First, I'll let you know we're brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Get your seal coating done now before the weather turns cold. Weekends are booking up fast. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. All right, bold and daring predictions. You ready?
I am ready.
End of the year. This is the first one for you. End of the year, the Royals have 4 top 100 prospects.
That's the one I prefer to forget. Yeah, that didn't work out.
Thinking Blake Walters, Blake Mitchell, the number 6 pick in 24 draft, and someone else.
So the big thing, obviously, the miss there, Blake Walters did not break out. Blake Mitchell, like I said, I mean, you can make a case for him. Jack Caglione is, I think, ranked higher than Blake Mitchell right now. He has a chance to fail, but still, he's a top 40, maybe top 30 prospect.
But nobody else joined the party.
No, I might make a case for somebody, but I don't know. It's certainly not a consensus. I think we're going to have 2 at the most. And so yeah, it wasn't a terrible year on the farm. Certainly wasn't as bad as last year, but it was disappointing in the sense that they didn't take the step forward that I hoped they would. So that is that's a fail on my part. But notably, that's about the minor league system and not the major league team, because that's where the success was this year.
My first one, I missed by only 13. MJ Melendez will hit 30 plus home runs.
Okay, yeah,
I said I'm not totally buying this, but if anybody's going to have kind of like the Mike Moustakas come together season, he's got the power. Let's hope he's rebuilt the swing. He had 17 home runs. The breakout player, I went even further than that. That did not do so well.
You know what's funny about MJ? Like, you think about how streaky he is, how exasperating he is. If you look at his numbers, though, on a season-wide level, year by year, he's at 18, 16, 17 home runs.
Yeah.
His slugging average is, in his 3 years in the major leagues, 393, 398, 400. Like, he has been incredibly consistent in that regard. But that's a problem when you're 23 years old, now you're 25, and you've shown exactly zero improvement as a hitter. He is the same guy he's always been at the plate, and it's not good enough for a left fielder, unfortunately. But I think, there's still the hope that he can figure things out. But every passing year, that, the odds of that go down.
Yes, for sure. And so, that was a big, giant swing and a miss. Number 2 for you, Vinny Pasquantino. Remember what you predicted?
I'd like to say he'll have 100 RBIs because that would get me close,
Yeah.
but no, that probably wasn't it.
Will be the first Royal to draw 90 walks in a season
Uh,
since 1989. Vinny was hurt.
I
Went
only missed by
50.
50.
You only missed by 50. He didn't even get to half that total. What went wrong there?
Yeah, the funniest thing isn't that he missed by 50. The funniest thing is he was outwalked by Salvador Perez. That's humiliating on my part. In part, that's Salvi obviously having his career high in walks. Part of it obviously he didn't play 162 games, but this is what is so exasperating about this team is like they have guys who show patience in the minor leagues, in the farm system, and it just doesn't manifest itself at the major league level. I will say I probably overstated his plate discipline because he's such a good contact hitter, but kind of paradoxically, because he makes such good contact, he puts the ball in play quickly enough that he's less likely to walk. So I think I got a little ahead of myself with his plate discipline. Even though he doesn't swing at a ton of bad pitches, he puts enough pitches in play that he's not going to get to 4 balls. So that was over exuberance on my part. He's not impatient, but he's not terribly patient. And 90 walks was a massive overbid there.
I want to give some love to Dr. Zhivago, who said, "Hey, they're called bold predictions for a reason."
Exactly.
Hell, yes. Thank you for getting it. The idea, and trust me, over on our Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, like Sam McDowell throws the fattest softballs ever of like just trying to get something right. Patrick Mahomes will attempt to pass this year. It's like the idea is to be bold and daring.
If we get 2 out of 5 right, if I get 2 out of 5 right, I'm very happy.
How about McDowell catching a stray over on the other podcast here? Love you, Sam. You're the best. But he's like, well, I want to get it right. I'm like, no, the idea is not to get it right. It's like to think, to broaden your horizon. What would be something that would be bold? Like what could actually happen, and that would be a bold and daring.
The goal is if you get it right, that you can lord it over people. If you get it right, that Patrick Mahomes throws a pass, you're not going to walk around with that, tattooed on your
I'm exaggerating to make a point, of course, there, but it is what it is. All right. Next up, let's see. For me, Chris Bubich takes Brady Singer's spot in the rotation when he returns.
No, but I'll give you partial credit because he was a valuable member. If anything, the problem there wasn't Bubich. The problem there was Singer was pitching so well and everybody was pitching so well that there was nobody for Bubich to take a spot in the rotation from. So he just took the spot of the 8th inning reliever, which was a much more pressing need, and did it very, very well.
And that's where I'll give myself, 20% credit on this or something, because like I did have it figured out that they'd both be a part of the plan. I just had them in the wrong order, right? Credit Brady Singer for pitching well enough to not be moved, and credit Chris Bubich for coming back and being healthy and being a guy who could, be something that the Royals really needed, really used. All right, this one. Here's your first victory parade.
Oh, let's hear it.
Royals are buyers at the deadline.
Ooh, so I did get that one right. Okay, I do not remember that one yet. I think, let's see. Lucas Erceg, Hunter Harvey, Paul DeYoung.
Yeah.
Who else am I'm forgetting? Michael Lorenzen. I'm taking a definite victory lap on that one. And again, that was the point. Like, even though projecting 75 wins, the point being is they just needed a little bit of luck to be at 500, which would have been enough to get them to be buyers at the deadline. And essentially that's what happened.
I'm going to give you even more credit because it makes the point, you had 75 wins and there's a lot of ways to get to 75, right? Is it you get to 75 with a
like a second half surge,
18-10 run through September.
Right, exactly.
You're never really in it. You kind of saw that this season that they would be 500-ish, that they would be around where it was worthwhile to make a run. So I'll give you some really, really good credit on that one. That was really well done. Kyle Isbell grabs the center field job. Was my next one. If I just stopped there.
Oh, I was going to say, I'm like, that sounds like a Sam McDowell prediction. I'm like,
if I
was he the starter
there, right? I could be like, okay, he was, but he wasn't thus, he was kind of in the mix. Okay. They had other guys, we were talking about Drew Waters,
Garrett Hampson, maybe. Yeah.
Right. Right. So, it's but I went on to say with the 330 plus on base percentage.
Okay. I knew there was a catch. Yeah.
287 was
I
his on
wish I
base
could give that one
percentage.
to you.
I missed it by 43 points. I
Yeah.
mean, he did grab the center field job, but all on his defense. The offense wasn't there, although he did almost have one of the most dramatic home runs in Royals postseason history. Had it gone over the wall, but wind was blowing in, and alas, he doesn't
He
get
did
it.
have a 299 on base against right-handers. I was trying to find some way to give you credit for that. I mean, look, Isbell is a good player. His defense is that valuable. He has just enough pop to, make him enticing at the bottom of the lineup. And like I said, he almost had, that was my prediction before the Orioles series, is that he's going to hit a home run in, it's going to change the game. And didn't do it against Baltimore, but came that close to doing it against New York. He's a good player, but if he could get a 330 on base percentage, he would be a really, really good player. He'd be quality starting center fielder. Right now, he's, what they used to call a second division starter. We're good enough to start on a team under 500, but not necessarily a guy you want starting on a contender, but he's the best the Royals have right now. And, right now, I would still say he's more likely than not to be the starting center fielder next year. And they'll hope that he can put up a 330 OBP next year.
Number 4 on your list. Congratulations on this one. Bobby Witt Jr. has the best MVP finish since George Brett in 1985.
This one I remembered very well. Yes. And that basically meant he had to be in the top 3, if not the top 2, because I believe Lorenzo Cain was it third that Lorenzo finished.
I thought was he that high? I thought
he was third in 2015. Yep. And I think I kind of purposely wrote it vaguely so that if he ends up being third and tied with Cain, at least it would qualify. But we don't know the results, but I would be very surprised if Bobby Witt is not second in the MVP vote when it's released, right? It's going to be Aaron Judge number 1. It's going to be Bobby number 2. I'm guessing it's going to be Gunnar Henderson third and Juan Soto fourth. Obviously, the vote was done at the end of the regular season, or Juan Soto would be quite a bit higher right now. But the point, the reason I made that prediction, like that, there was a second part to that, which is if he finishes in the top 3, the Royals get that prospect promotion incentive pick. And that's going to be the little extra cherry on top at the end of this season, is that in all likelihood, when the MVP results are announced, the Royals are going to officially have another top 35 pick in the draft next year. And that's exciting. So that one I'm very proud of.
Yes, that is a good one. Well done on that one. All right, my next one, Royals finished 3rd in the American League Central.
I mean, they finished tied for 3rd, I guess. Tied for 2nd and 3rd. I'm going to give that one to you.
I think most people would say they finished, tied for 2nd. I always point out, like, if there's like a 4-way tie, like your 2nd and your, 5th as well. So not bad. I mean, the spirit of what I was getting at, that they were going to rise up in the division.
No, you were trying to pay them a compliment. I think you get credit for them being even better potentially than you said. Yes, no, that's a win.
All right. And your final one, Cole.
This is my favorite. Even though I technically didn't get this one, this is the one
There's no technically. You didn't get it.
I didn't get it, but I'm still proud of this one more than even the Bobby Witt one.
Cole Reagans will break the Royals single season strikeout record. Cole Reagans finished with 223? 223. 3rd best ever, behind Zach Greinke's 242 in 2009 and Dennis Leonard's 244 in 1977.
You did not actually read my entire prediction, in part because I didn't actually say this, but I meant to say he will set the all-time strikeout record for a Royals left-hander.
Well, what I have down is Cole Reagans breaks.
I'm teasing. I didn't say that, but I'm just saying, like, he did break did he set the record? No. In part because he only threw 186 innings. That was one of the reasons why this is so bold. Is it wasn't even the strikeouts that was, or the quality that was concerned. It was how many innings, he threw. I mean, Dennis Leonard threw that year
292 and 2/3 innings.
Right. So think about it. Cole Reagans threw 186 innings, and yet he finished with the 3rd most strikeouts in Royals history, the most in 15 years since Zach Greinke's Cy Young year, the most by a left-hander ever. And this is, I think, more important. No, he did not set the Royals all-time strikeout record. He did not just break, but smash the all-time Royals strikeouts per 9 innings record. He struck out 10.8 batters per 9 innings. In all of Royals history, among pitchers who threw even 100 innings, not even, forget 162 qualifying, any Royals pitcher who threw 100 innings, the highest strikeout per 9 inning ratio before this year was 9.5 by Tom Gordon in 1991. And Zach Greinke in 2009. They both had 9.5. That was the record. He smashed that by over a strikeout per 9, 10.8. So I'm declaring a partial victory on the spirit of it. No, I didn't. He did not break the record, but and the more to the point, like if the Royals were going to have a surprisingly good year, it was going to be because Cole Reagan's 2023, which we were incredibly excited about, but was 12 starts or whatever. It could have been a fluke. I was betting, you were betting, it was not a fluke. And he emphatically proved it was not a fluke. He was exceptional this year. He was exceptional in the postseason. 10 innings, 1 run, right? So that's why I say that's the one I'm proudest of, even though technically I did not get it.
Yeah. And I finished with a big win as well. Salvador Perez is traded at the trade deadline. Nailed
it. You got it, Soren. I bow to your prognostication skills there.
Yeah. Can't top that one. Yeah. So, and I like doing this. I think the exercise and why we do it, one, why we make the predictions beforehand is because I think you need to, it sets the tone of what we were expecting. It gives us an idea of where our heads were. Because after 6 months and you watch them, oh boy, look, they're off to a good start. Oh, they're still in it. Oh, where's our playoff optimism meter? And like it builds. And at the end of the year, you're like, well, of course it's a playoff team. No, that was not our mindset going in, right? That was not how it was working. So I think it's important to do these kind of things so that you recognize, what the journey was. It helps tell the story of how
100%.
far they came. Or how far they backed up.
Tell the story of this, of the 2024 Royals by, this wildly optimistic projection of Bobby Witt and Cole Reagan's, coming true. And you saying, there'll be a third place team. And, they could have, if they had lost their final game of the season, they would have been a third place team and still would have been in the playoffs. So, that was something I think that maybe we also did not project, is that 3 American League Central teams would make the playoffs. That's the thing that we missed on. But we both knew it was possible for the Royals to be competitive in this division, and they were.
Yeah, they were. And so overall, how do you think we did?
I mean, I think we did pretty good. Yeah, I mean, again, given that these were bold predictions, like I said, I think if you get 2 out of 5 right, you're doing fantastic. You should be. Like these are, and I think it's a testament to the Royals playing well. If this had been like last year, I don't remember what we projected before the 2023 season, but I'm guessing we were 0 for 5 or maybe 1 for 5 because they lost 106 games. We're not making bold predictions that they're going to suck. We're making bold predictions that they're going to do better than expected. And they did. And that's what made the season fun.
If you want somebody to do great work for you, it's Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized, full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems? They've been making them disappear in KC since 1994. Don't risk accidents and liability in your parking lot. Get your lot restriped today. A brightly striped lot will cut down on accidents and keep your lot as safe as possible. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Kansas City's best, Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Thank you very much. Always love our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Let's talk a little bit about impending free agents, Rany. What to do with them. The biggest one on the board, of course, is Michael Wacha. Right? Like, what is the approach? J.J. Picollo said they very much want to have him back, but they said, he's made it clear he pitched really well, and there's going to be a lot of people that are interested in him. Is it a whatever it takes and then figure out the rest with whatever's left? Or do you have a dollars and years in mind? And if it fits for him, great. If not, then you got to walk.
Yeah, I think we have to look at this season with some perspective and take a step back and say, teams that improve by 30 wins from one year to the next, usually, not always, but usually fall back a little bit the next year, right? Like, I don't think you look at this team, if you're the Royals, and say, we got to run it back exactly the same way as we did the year before. If the Royals bring back everybody, I don't expect this level of success. Having said that, right now, Michael Wacha has a $16 million player option, right? If
Right.
you could get him on a 1 year and 16 million as the Royals, yeah, I think that's an obvious yes. And for that reason, I assume he will decline the option. If he accepts the option, of course, that you're stuck, quote unquote, but you're happy to be stuck with him. That's fine. I think we take 1 at 16. So the first question is, assuming he declines the offer, do you make him a qualifying offer? I do not believe he's had one made to him in the past, which means he is still eligible. If I'm wrong, someone correct me, but because you can only be offered it once in your career. But the qualifying offer basically means that you offer him a 1 year contract, and I believe the number this coming winter is going to be 21 million or 21.1 million for 1 year. Knowing that if he declines that, it means you get a draft pick compensation if he signs elsewhere. My feeling is he's probably going to decline 1 in 16. If he accepts 1 in 20, like the idea that his value is somewhere between is so high that he's going to decline 1 in 16, but so low that he'll decline 1 in 21 that's a very narrow window. Like if he's going to decline 1 in 16 because he's looking for a 2 or probably even a 3-year contract. My feeling is he will almost certainly decline the qualifying offer if you make it to him. In which case, then you have the decision: do you really want to sign to a multi-year deal, or do you let him walk, knowing you'll get a draft pick, and especially pairing that with the Bobby Witt prospect promotion incentive pick? Now suddenly you're going to have your own pick, which is going to be probably 25th or something like that. But then you have 2 more picks in the top 40. I would be inclined to let him walk at that point, unless you can get him on a really, on a discounted deal. And he's going to be 33 years old. If I'm him, this is probably the last chance at a multi-year deal I can get. I think it behooves him to get, the best contract he can. I think that he's likely to, take the best offer, and I wish him the best, but I don't think that'll be from the Royals. And if they can get a draft pick out of it, all the more reason to let him walk.
Yeah. Okay. I think there's a pretty good chance he's here. Right? Like, I think they find a way. I don't know how much more. I think he's just going to get multiple years. The question, like you said, the age and everything that goes into it. Do you really want to have a guy tied, that much money tied up in a guy at that age? But he's been a pretty good leader for this team. And I think when we get to who should you trade, I think that might factor into what you do with Wacha, right? Yeah. Like, and maybe Michael Wacha, if you can get him signed for the right price, affects who it is you're offering out there in a trade. Right. So I think
that is something I agree with. We're going to get into our trade ideas in a moment here, but that is definitely the caveat I have. Like, I would not be upset if they bring him back. Obviously, if it's like, 3 years and 90 million, yeah, that'd be crazy. But if they can get him for 2 and 35, or maybe even 3 and 40, something along those lines, where it's a multi-year deal, but for less money, I'm willing to consider it. There is risk, but he's been a very consistent starter for 3 straight years. The biggest concern with him really is just how healthy he can stay. I mean, this was the most starts he's made, the most innings that he's thrown since 2017. I'm more concerned about him breaking down, I think, than I am about him suddenly like losing effectiveness. I think the stuff that we saw from him this year, I think he worked very well with, Brian Sweeney and, the Royals pitching philosophy. I just worry about him being able to stay healthy for more than 20 starts in a season.
Right. I agree. And I think, because a guy did it once doesn't mean he's going to do it again and again and again. And I think that's the one thing is everybody wants it to be, the best season this is who he is. This is the real guy. And the reality is he's his whole career. Now, maybe they've got the magic, guy. They've got the new Leo Mazzoni in Brian Sweeney that can keep him healthy. But yeah, I think this is a tightrope. I think he wants to be here. I thought it was important when JJ Picola said he and his wife both like Kansas City. And so I do think that this is, a place that he could be. But, you also, if somebody comes in and blows him away with an extra year and a lot more cash, then you got to take it, right?
Right.
You always come back to Kansas City and live when you're done playing baseball if you love it so much. Right. And so I think that's an important one. All right, Adam Frazier.
Right. So, well, I mean, so Adam Frazier, Garrett Hampson, Will Smith. These are I feel like there's one other guy who doesn't have a player option. I'm forgetting. These are all guys, though. I think you might consider them back on like a non-roster invitee mode, but I'm just not sure at this point that any of them justify
Agreed.
a guaranteed roster spot for next year. Now, I want to differentiate. Hunter Renfroe and Chris Stratton both have player options
Right.
for next year. Renfroe is, I think, $7.5 million or a $1 million buyout. So for him, it's basically, he's getting an extra $6.5 million if he decides to stick around for next year. Chris Stratton, it's $4.5 million instead of 500,000 buyout. So bottom line is, if Hunter Renfroe can get more than $6.5 million elsewhere, or if Chris Stratton can get more than $4 million elsewhere, they'll opt out. I don't think they will. And so I think that means they will not opt out. I think they will both be back. And I think, well, you probably wouldn't give them that much money if they were free agents right now. I think that if they both opt into their contracts, that the Royals will go into next season with the expectation, go into spring training with the expectation they will both be on the roster. Stratton, if he's, not healthy, at some point you may consider cutting bait if he doesn't show anything in spring training. Renfroe, if he starts the year hitting 150, maybe you consider cutting bait, in season, but neither one of them was so bad that the Royals would cut them just before the season even began. So I think both of those guys are coming back. Oh, the one guy we're actually forgetting here because we traded for him, Michael Lorenzen. That's, to me, a more interesting one. If you bring Wacha back, I don't think there's a spot for him, right? Like, ultimately the Royals have the luxury of having so many good starting pitchers. You wouldn't want to re-sign them all, even if you could, just because you don't need that many, right? But like, Lorenzen is definitely a backup plan to me. If you can't sign Michael Wacha, or you don't want to meet the price, but you are concerned about trying to promote one or two starting pitchers from within, Lorenzen is the same age as Wacha. His strikeout to walk numbers were not great this year, but the Royals made some tweaks in his repertoire when they acquired him, and he pitched much better for them than he had with the Rangers. This is, something I'm still getting used to saying, that the Royals acquired a pitcher and made him better, but that's the reality. So to me, he's sort of a backup plan to Wacha, but that's definitely somebody I would consider if it looks like Walker's not coming back.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's a good one. All right, so that's all the impending free agents. So, and Michael Wacha is the big domino. You got to see where that goes, because that's a lot of money that you then are equipped to go spend.
Paul DeYoung, I guess, is another guy that he's also a guy they acquired as a free agent. I guess you could, but if you believe in Michael Massey and you believe in Michael Garcia right now, if he's willing to come back in a utility role for small dollars, I think he's a great depth piece to have. But I think again, it's sort of you figure out the other dominoes first, and if he's still on the market at that point, then you consider him. But he's not an urgent piece that they have to re-sign quickly.
Yeah. All right. Let's get to what two players the Royals should be looking at trading. I think we're both on one guy, Brady Singer.
Yeah, well, that's why I suggested let's talk about two, because we've been talking about Brady Singer, for years as a trade candidate, and I think we both agree that he has to be strongly considered. But it's not because we don't like him. It's not because he's not good. It's actually, this year, fortunately, it's the opposite, right? Like, he has reestablished himself as somebody who has real value. He's a good pitcher. And the Royals have the luxury of having so much starting pitching depth. If you're going to, like, you don't trade a guy just to get rid of him. You trade him because you need assets elsewhere. And the Royals need to acquire offense. Specifically, they could really use some outfielders. I don't care where they play. Corner outfield for would be ideal, but even a center fielder who can hit better than Kyle Isbell would be something to consider. But you're going to have to give up something to get something. And Brady Singer, as a guy with 2 years still of club control, who has established himself as a very good number 4 and an acceptable number 3 starter. It just makes all the sense in the world to see what you can get from him, because you're not selling low now. You're selling at his, at real value, and you could get a real piece for him, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think also what I like about Brady Singer is I think his cost is low. So I think that puts every team in baseball on the table.
Absolutely.
Right. You're not offloading just a guy who's really expensive. So teams like the Pirates and the Reds that think that they're close are interested, and there are potentially teams that will, giving up the prospects is their only route because they can't go into free agency and buy them, so that maybe you could extract the maximum return on them. That's what I like about Brady Singer. So I think he's it. All right, who's your other one?
Well, I'm worried that we're going to end up with like the same name like we always seem to do. So my other one, I want to caveat this by saying if they trade Singer, then this is probably off the table. But if in the event they cannot get what they want for Singer, but they want to make a bold move. Now, this one is kind of, we talked about our bold predictions. This is a bold trade idea. I would be very surprised if this happened, but I like to throw these ideas out there for people to think about, like what it takes to kind of build a winning team. And if the Royals are going to build an offense, they need to get a really good hitter. They're going to have to move a real talent. If they keep Singer, and this is also where it comes in, if they're able to re-sign Michael Wacha, I would see what you can get for Seth Lugo. Because it's 1 year. He's an ace right now, right? Like he is, if not a number one, an excellent number two. I mean, he's basically James Shields right now. And you've got, you have Reagans. If you don't trade Singer, you have Reagan, Singer, Alec Marsh. If you can keep Wacha, maybe you have Lorenzen. You have enough starting pitching depth. You could get a middle of the order bat, maybe only for a year or two, but you could get somebody to hit in the middle of that offense. And as we saw in the postseason, the Royals need a bat pretty badly. Like that is what held them back in the postseason. And it's like, I would love to be able to offer up somebody else out there, but like anybody else you trade is going to be either trading low in the case of like an MJ Melendez or Michael Garcia. Like you're not going to get much for those guys, and you're giving up upside because you get frustrated that they haven't developed already. If you want to trade something with real value, you got to trade something that's going to hurt. And that would be a trade that hurts, but might actually be in the best interest of the team in the long run.
I'll go a step further. I too have Seth Lugo up there because I think it brings back the most in return. But I'm more of the idea that go buy what you need in free agency and then stock the system. Right? Like as I look at the team, my fear is that there's still not enough in the system, and I don't know how it's going to get there. Right? I now am believing in their overall plan pitching wise that they're going to be able to pump relievers at least. And I think they're going to start getting better with the starting pitching, and so that we're going to see some of the starting pitching develop. But I just don't see the bats, right, that are coming. And, we can talk about Kevin Seitzer and, somebody giving them I'm not satisfied with the answers that JJ Piccolo gave about Kevin Seitzer and like, well, you got to have a spot to hire somebody. That's never been how baseball's operated. They've always, if somebody valuable is available and you like them, you go get them and you figure out where they work in there. And I think you could do that with Kevin Seitzer, keep him around. They had Mike Matheny and Ned Yost waiting in the wings for managers. Right. They've had hitting coaches waiting in the wings. I'm sorry, like they should do that. But as I look at it, I'm not convinced that they have enough bats coming. And so I think they need to stock the system. And so I know it's not what people want to hear, but you've got to count on them. And when you talk about Michael Lorenzen as well, if you could move Seth Lugo and get some premium talent to help restock the system and hopefully position player talent to restock the system, then I'm all for it. And I know that's not going to be what people want to hear. They don't want to hear that arguably their best pitcher, they're getting zero in immediate returns for, but I actually think it's what's best for the organization. And I think that they showed that if you can competently pitch, and they were beyond competently pitch, but if you can run out 5 good starting pitchers, you're going to be a competitive team. And so I don't know that it has to, and I also don't know that Seth Lugo can replicate what he did this year. And so there should probably be some bit of a regression from him, although it's been 2 pretty good years in a row. But I would like to see it be young talent. That's one of the things I had up there is like, what do you expect in return? What should you be targeting in return? That's where I would make the statement right now. I'm targeting minor league talent to help fill the system more than I am trying to solve whatever problems they've got at the big league level.
That's perfectly reasonable. So is Lugo the guy that you would consider then?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we did once again independently come up with the same answers. I want to make one other point, which is that if we believe now that the Royals have a demonstrated ability to take pitchers, whether internally or from other organizations, and make them better, then it makes sense to convert that into currency, right? We talk about pitching the currency of baseball. If you can develop pitchers, then trade the pitchers you have developed at the peak of their value, and then go out and acquire other pitchers and make them better, right? And the analogy I want to make is to our beloved and undefeated Kansas City Chiefs, who, for years seem to have this ability to take late round secondary players, turn them into, really good cornerbacks. What did they do this offseason? They traded L'Jarius Sneed, a mid-round draft pick, right? Because it seemed like every year they would take a fourth round pick and turn him into L'Jarius Sneed, Joshua Williams. They took Jalen Watson in the 6th or 7th round, turned these guys into really good players. They went out and traded L'Jarius Sneed at the peak of his value. Now, obviously, value is different in football with the contracts, et cetera, but they were able to get a draft pick for him, elevate Jalen Watson into that role because they could develop from within. Now they have Najee Johnson, Jamari Connor. Like, the point is, they have if you have an ability to take late round picks, turn them into quality players. Well, once they're quality and they've got even more value, trade those guys, bring in, you keep the conveyor belt moving, right? It's a weird analogy, but that's kind of what they did with Seth Lugo. They took an established player, good player, turned it into a great player. Does that mean they could do that to somebody else? Maybe, in which case, maybe they trade the now great player for market value for a great player and prove that they can do it again with somebody else. Maybe then they go out and sign another free agent. I don't know who this winter Seth Lugo is, but we can certainly look for those guys and get value for Lugo now and find his replacement at the same time.
Yeah, no, I agree. And but they have to be active, right? That has to be the thing. And they've got to be creative and they've got to go to people. Yeah. I always felt like Dayton Moore was just sitting around going, well, no one's called us. Well, who have you called? And I don't know if that's true, but it just kind of felt like that, was kind of more the vibe.
Yeah, I'm not worried. Like, that's the one thing I think we both agree that we're confident JJ is making calls. Like, I still look back at this trade deadline and he really caught us off guard with the Lucas Erceg trade. Of all the trades at the deadline, and maybe, they knew even then that Hunter Harvey's back was worse than it looked, his injury concerns. But the point is, like, that's the trade that really that really made their deadline. And frankly, without him, do they make the postseason? Do they get past the Orioles? I don't know. So, but that's the sort of trade. I don't think the A's came calling to the Royals and like, hey, we know you just traded for a reliever. We know you just traded for Hunter Harvey. Do you want another one? I don't think that's how that worked out. I think JJ was aggressive. And so, yeah, I hope that he's, making calls, and hopefully he'll come up with some creative solution that you and I haven't even thought of at this point, because there's a lot of teams out there and there's a lot of players.
All right, real quick before we go, do you think any of this happens?
In terms of signing trades? I do. I actually think they will make a trade. You talk about a trade that hurts, a trade of a significant player. I do not think they're going to sit pat here. And I do think that ties into what happens with Michael Wacha. Like I said, if they do that may make it more likely that they have a spot for Wacha, that maybe they have the salary, situation allows them to re-sign him. But yes, I think they looked at that. They could not have looked at their offense this in October and said, we can solve this purely with free agency, unless they're going to back up the truck and sign Juan Soto, because they could use a leadoff hitter and a right fielder, and $50 million a year. They could do it. I would approve. If anyone listening in the ownership group, yes, you will have my full-throated endorsement if you do sign Juan Soto. But failing that, I think that they're probably going to have to make a trade in addition to signing a free agent in order to really get the offense where they want it to be.
By the way, Eris says, I read a baseball article talking about Jorge Soler being a target for the Royals again. Like, where did you read this? And somebody else said, well, here, Jason said, they haven't released how much money they have to spend. No, and JJ Picola said he hasn't been given an exact budget, but he expected it to be about the same as what they have this year. As we pointed out, you do drop the dead money on
Hunter Dozier.
So, and then if Michael Wacha's not back, that's 15 million, you have to spend as well. So like that's part of the thing. It's not just about Michael Wacha's talent. It's about the money.
Right.
Can you spend that money better somewhere else?
Right.
Probably not if he's going to do what he did last year, but if he's not going to sign, and you have no choice because, the Mets come in and give him 4 for 80,
right.
Then, you're on down the road doing what you need to do. And you just recognize that you've got that money to spend and go do it someplace else. So,
yeah, I mean, I hope that they would raise the total payroll at least by a modest amount. I mean, look, they had two home playoff games right there. It's probably 10 million in revenue. So, I don't think they have to go crazy unless they want to sign Juan Soto, in which case go crazy. But even a modest increase in, like you said, the dead money coming off the books. There should be, I think, space for one quality free agent, a Seth Lugo, Michael Wacha type for sure. And you do that and you make a trade, you might be able to bring in 2 quality hitters for this lineup. I think that's necessary if you intend to be a contender against next year.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Rany, not too bad on the predictions. We did well. We're ready to go into free agency. We know what they've got to work on in-house, and we know what kind of bullets they've got that they can fire in a trade. I still think Salvador Perez, Freddie Fermin, depth of catching is all stuff that they could also be looking at throwing around there.
I was going to say, Freddie Fermin is, I mean, they're not going to trade Salvi, or not at this point, not after all this, and they shouldn't, and that's fine. But Freddie Fermin is, if you want to trade from depth and from like an area where they all season, I mean, as we saw in October, they could not get both of these guys on the field at the same time. And Freddie Fermin, last year, people might have thought it was a fluke. I mean, we had a very good year, but he is a candidate for the Gold Glove, right? Like he was named a finalist for the Gold Glove award. He is a fantastic defensive catcher who can hit a little bit.
Yeah.
And he's 30 years old. He's, maybe not going to get better, but he's cheap. He's under club control for 5 years. So yes, that might be an area where you could trade a hitter and actually get something back at a different position that'll help you more. So that's probably the one other guy that we could definitely see on the move.
Rany, great stuff. Always appreciate it. And of course, always appreciate our fine partnership with GAN Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's best, proudly serving the KC area. Nationally recognized full service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems, they've been making them disappear in Kansas City since 1994 with free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project coming with a written warranty. GAN Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer, allows you to focus on your business, avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find them online at ganasphalt.com. That's ganasphalt.com, or call 816-484-3338. GAN Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. For the good Dr. Rany Jazayerli, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on Kaufman Corner.